Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time and depending when you're going to be seeing this video. It's your brother, your boy, courserepscorner. Like I always tell you guys, it's my corner, it's your corner, and it's our corner.
Interesting topic given to us by highly experienced and respected elder statesmen in our great continent, Africa, and the world. When you are called to speak after such a very eloquent lecture telling us what his experiences have been and are still going on in his dear country and Africa, and given the topic to speak on religious tolerance and inclusiveness, and also knowing and taking note that yesterday at the National Mosque we had a lecture which captured all the ingredients, or most of the ingredients, of religious tolerance and inclusiveness. I believe I shouldn't be saying much on that religious tolerance. Tolerance is what we have been working on the last 16 years as co-chairman of NAREC, together with the president of CAN, and I believe the SGF in the last 5, 6, 7 years had been the anchor and the arrowhead of our activities, so he knows a lot, and the government too knows a lot about our works for religious tolerance and understanding in this great country, Nigeria. So I will deviate a little bit, but not too off, because most of the things I'm going to say, if you put them together with what the former president of Kenya said, you'll find a lot of similarities. So I crave your indulgence to patiently listen in the next 8, 9, 10 minutes of my presentation, even though I was given 15 minutes. We all know why we have democracy. And we call democracy a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And such democracy we are supposed to practice or to have is to ensure development, peace and stability of our people. And without development, without peace and stability, there's no democracy. And you can't have democracy when you don't have good leaders to practice that democracy. So leadership is of utmost importance if you want to really practice democracy, move the country forward to the greatest heights. So I'll briefly talk about some of the things that I'm so very familiar with, what leadership is all about, because there's need for us to look at what we should do. I'll skip a lot of sentences or comments that people might not understand. But I want to start by expressing our deep gratitude to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Most High, for making it possible to witness the 7th consecutive democratic transition of power in our great country, Nigeria, without any major hitch or crisis. This in itself is a significant achievement in which both the winners and those who did not win, I don't call them losers, those who won and those who did not win, share in the credit. The lecture from our distinguished speaker has been well conceived and delivered, and I believe we've all heard it. Our task here is to see how we can enrich the conversation by broadening the perspectives and propounding advice to the incoming administration of our great country on ways to improve on governance and development in an atmosphere of peace and security. Coming from a tradition of good governance that is informed by an intellectual tradition, which itself is an heir of a long tradition of governance going back to the empires of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, perhaps my contribution should dwell on the writings of our forefathers who established the Sokoto Caliphate over 200 years ago. Being scholars, these leaders have left behind over 350 different works between the three prominent figures. I'll just provide some few snippets to take us through this short presentation. On the necessity of government, for example, Sultan Muhammad Bello said, "It is certainly known that if it were not for the power of rulers, no person would have been safe in his house, let alone in the wilderness. Nor would it be permissible for any person to collect tax, and the interest of the public would not have been preserved. For this reason, it becomes necessary to appoint a supreme leader and his deputies, such as the prime ministers, the governors, and the judges of all the regions of the earth, so that the interest of religion and leadership may be maintained and the proper order of the entire world be established. If it were not for the authority of state, many people would have been killed before they could kill a single man who is legally condemned to death when they seek to obtain their rights from each other without a force to protect them. Rulers in our case are those who have been elected to govern us, govern our country or our states at both the federal and state levels, should see leadership as a trust from God, for which they have to ultimately account to him, as Sheikh Abdullah bin Fodio said. Verily, political power is a vicegerency from Allah and a stewardship from God's apostle. How great then its dignity and how heavy are its burdens. If the leader follows the path of righteousness, piety will take ascendancy over his worldly desires. If he goes astray, his piety will fall victim to worldly lust. Therefore, fear God. Know that every soul shall have a taste of death, and you shall receive your full recompense on the day of judgment. Leadership is also service to the people. As Sheikh Uthman Danfodio said, seeing to the welfare of people is more effective than the use of force. It has been said that the crown of a leader is his integrity, his stronghold is his impartiality, and his wealth is that of his people. There will be no triumph with transgression, no rule without learning, and no leadership with vengeance. No society can rise above its leaders. In other words, it is the quality of leaders which determines and pegs the quality of society. As Sultan Muhammad Bello said, leaders are like a spring of water, and all our officials are like water wheels. If the spring is pure, the filth in the water wheels cannot harm it. If, on the other hand, the spring is polluted and dirty, the purity of the water wheels that have been used to draw the water will have little or no effect on the purity of the water. Leaders still need to be very careful in the appointment of officials, and Sheikh Uthman bin Fodio said, the first support is on upright wazir, that is a prime minister or a deputy over the state, who wakes him, the leader, who wakes him up if he sleeps. Give him sight if he cannot see, and remind him if he forgets. The greatest catastrophe which can befall leaders and people is to be deprived of good wazirs or ministers and good assistances. the most important qualifying attitude or attribute of the leader of the wazir is to be of trustworthy conduct, perceptive in the affairs of the common people, the courage to tell the truth, and must not withhold good advice from the leader. Mohammed Bello has a piece of advice to these officials in his Usul Siyas, in one of his very famous books, where he wrote, "The happiest leader is he whose subjects are happy with him, and the most unfortunate leader is he whose subjects are miserable under him. So beware of injustice, for your workers are imitating you. If you commit injustice, you will be like the animal in a green pasture, which eats so much that it becomes so fat, and that fatness is the cause of its destruction, as it will be slaughtered and eaten," unquote. Leaders need to understand those things that are necessary for a state to survive, and those that are capable of destroying politics. On this, Sheikh Umar Danfodio wrote, "One of the swiftest ways of destroying a state is to give preference to one particular tribe over another, or to show favor to one group of people over the other, and draw near those who should be kept away, and keep away those who should be drawn near you." A ruler was asked when he had lost his throne, what brought your rule to an end? He replied, "Being intransigent in my views and neglecting to seek advice." Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, these are some of the few remarks I want to make to draw attention of our incoming governors, presidents, and other leaders on the intellectual heritage which we have been talking about for decades, or for centuries rather, which I hope our elected officials will reflect on and find useful as they undertake the onerous task of children with the affairs of the state. I should also draw your attention to levels of poverty and ignorance in the land, and ignorance in the land only made worse by the rising population of this country, which is estimated by the United Nations to be well over 400 million by 2050, which will make Nigeria the third largest populated country in the world after India and China. As political leaders, you need not only think of the next election, but also, and more importantly, think of the next generation. I leave you with these thoughts and pray for God's guidance, wisdom, and patience, for our leaders to take our country to the highest height, and may we have peace and stability in our great country, Nigeria. And as we wish our incoming government most of the Allah's blessings in all what they do to take our country to the promised land, we call on all and all to give support, prayer, and stay in peace. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward all of our leaders for what they have done for our country, and may He bring peace and stability. As I also leave you in peace, I say wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
As we come to the close of this important inauguration lecture, I stand before you with profound sense of pride and gratitude. Today, we have embarked on a journey of introspection, enlightenment, and collective growth. We have delved deep into the theme of deepening democracy for development and explored the lessons that will guide us as we transition to a new era. Throughout this lecture, we have recognized the challenges and divisions that have tested the very fabric of our nation. We have confronted the harsh realities of inequality, the persistence of corruption, and the imperative to empower all citizens. But more importantly, we have unearthed the transformative power of democracy and the immense potential it holds for our great nation. In the course of this lecture, we have learned that democracy is not merely a system of governance. It is a way of life. It requires active participation, inclusivity, and relentless pursuit of justice and fairness. We have understood that true democracy thrives when the voices of all citizens are heard, valued, and represented, regardless of their background or social status. The underlying philosophy of this lecture has been rooted in the belief that our nation's progress rests on the pillars of unity, inclusivity, and shared responsibility. We have acknowledged that the task of nation building is a collective one, transcending political affiliations and personal interests. It is a commitment to leaving no Nigerian behind, ensuring that every citizen feels the positive impact of good governance and enjoys the dividends of democracy. The lessons we have learned here are not mere intellectual exercises, but a call to action. As I prepare to hand over the reins of governance to the President-elect on the 29th of May, I am filled with a renewed sense of hope, hinged on the capacity of my successor, His Excellency Bolaahmedtinubu, to deliver on the assignment given to him by Nigerians. I am at the same time reminded of the immense responsibilities entrusted upon us as leaders and the tremendous potentials that lies within our great nation. We must heed the lessons of this lecture and translate them into concrete actions. We must continue to prioritize the welfare and well-being of our citizens, providing them with quality education, accessible health care, and sustainable livelihoods. We must fight against corruption in all its forms, unfolding the principles of transparency, accountability, and the rule of law. But above all, we must remain united. Our diversity is our strength, and it is through dialogue, understanding, and respect we can overcome our differences and forge a common path towards progress. Let us foster an environment where every Nigerian has an equal opportunity to thrive, regardless of their background, ethnicity, religion, or social status. As I conclude, I want to express my deep appreciation to the esteemed speakers, most especially our keynote speaker, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, for once again accepting my invitation to share his wealth of knowledge with us. Indeed, your thought-provoking lecture and the perspective shared by the panel of eminent Nigerians has left an indelible mark on our collective consciousness. I thank the Secretary to the Government of the Federation and members of his team for a job well done. To the President-elect, I offer my heartfelt congratulations and assurance of my unwavering support. I trust that you will lead our nation with integrity, vision, and a deep commitment to the ideals of democracy and national development. Let us remember that the true measure of our success lies not in the titles we hold or the positions we occupy, but on the positive impact we make on the lives of our fellow citizens. Together, let us march forward, guided by the lessons learned from this lecture, and build a Nigeria that is prosperous, inclusive, and anchored on the principles of democracy. Thank you, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.